So I just wanted to film a quick overview video for you about what's in the box, what's included with your Thermomix TM6, along with some kind of best practice and some hints and tips for use. So firstly, you'll have, if I show you in here, so this is the bowl. The lid will go on, so you'll have the silicone ring here that will sit over the top of the bowl to kind of seal when you're using that. And this is referred to as the measuring cup that sits inside the top of the lid here. It's kind of a bit like a teapot. So the way that sits is, and it will just like slot into place. And a little tip for removing that, if you can see here, there's like a little spout. So if you're wanting to take that out, if you just pull on the spout, that is a really easy way of getting that out. You'll get used to it as you use it, but if you pull it sideways, it's quite firmly in place. So that's just a little tip for removing that. Bowl wise, so obviously you've got all the pre-clean modes on the Thermomix for washing this up, but it also all goes into the dishwasher. So I like to use a pre-clean if I'm going directly from dish to dish and I'm wanting to wash that up. And then usually at the end of the day, I'll pop it in the dishwasher to give it a really thorough clean. It all comes apart. So now with this base bit here, you can see there's like a little join. So you'll tend to just hold the handle and then push with your thumb to the left, and that will just slot off. It's quite stiff when you first open the box and it's new, but with use that eases up. So that comes off. A lot of the time, this bit does not need washing because it doesn't really come into contact with the food unless you put it down in a bit of a puddle or something, but it is dishwasher safe, so you can pop that in the dishwasher if you want to. Once you've removed that, you can simply remove the blades and they can come out, and again these can all go into the dishwasher, but you've also got good access then to the bowl if you're wanting to just wash that by hand. And then to reverse, to pop that all back together, so you'll just place the blades into the hole there. You will put the base back on to the left of the handle and just twist that into position. And you'll know that's in nicely because the blades will spin, but they won't wiggle. They'll be nice and firmly in position. When you're removing the bowl from your TM6, it's an upward motion, not a forward motion. So that's how you get the bowl in and out. Then one thing to note, so if you've been washing your bowl and you're cooking with this, just make sure that these pins on the bottom are completely dry, like use a tea towel or something to dry those before you put it back into your machine, because if you keep putting those in wet, you can corrode the electronics and the metal of the machine. So just a top tip to make sure that those are nice and dry before you place that back in. So then in terms of the attachment that comes with this, so got the steaming basket. So this is used for like steaming your rice or your potatoes and things. You can pop that in there. If you are steaming rice in this, it's a good idea to give it a really good rinse and make sure that the rice is nice and wet before you progress with steaming that. But essentially, that will just sit inside your bowl. All the recipes on Cookie Do will tell you exactly what you're doing with that, but that just sits in nice and easily there. And then when you're cooking, obviously with that, the lid will then sit on top. The spatula comes with it, and they've really thought through the design of this. So no matter which way round you place this on your countertop, this part will not touch your work surface. So it's a nice and clean design there. And they've really thought this bit through as well. So there's a little notch here that can be used for removing your steaming basket, because there's a notch here on your steaming basket in the lid. And basically that can be removed so that you can drain your rice without burning your fingers when you've got like a hot dish here. Occasionally, when you're doing something and it's asking you to insert the spatula into the lid, always only use the one that comes with your Thermomix, because that has a safety guard, which means that as you're turning that for things like your, frozen fruit sorbets and so forth, it will never come into contact with the blades because that guard is there for a reason. But again, that's been thought through really nicely. So those are those bits. You've also then got the butterfly whisk. So this sits inside of the bowl. So this you'll use for things like whipping your egg whites, your cake batters, even things like for a smooth bolognese. It'll help you to kind of break up the mince if you prefer it to the chunky version. And basically, if you can see in here, with your blades, there's one blade that sits higher than the others. So for ideal positioning, you want your butterfly whisk to sit to the left of the highest blade. Now it doesn't click into position, so don't expect you know, sort of a satisfactory click. It just kind of rests in, and basically these notches on it at the bottom, as it spins, kind of tuck underneath the blades and hold it into position. So that's fairly easy to kind of get in, and you'll just give it a wiggle to then remove that. Now, if you are whisking something and you hear this noise, you want to push this button on your machine to stop what it's doing, because when that's in position, you shouldn't hear tinking. It's never actually happened to me, but it's just worth knowing. When that's on, you're not going to hear that rattling. So that's your butterfly whisk. You've also got your splash guard. So this is used not that often actually, but when you're doing high temperature cooking for sort of the stir fries and things like that, they'll ask you to put this splash guard on, and that will just sit over the top of your lid. And when the arms lock, that will hold that into place. So you've got that one for that too. And then this is the varoma. So this is used for steaming. And actually often in the cookie dough recipes, there's pictures of these when you get to that part of the recipe and it's asking you to put the measuring cup in the lid or the steaming basket on. There's a photo to kind of show you exactly what you're using. So it kind of makes it nice and easy. But with this, so this is the varoma. You've got the dish, which is the main big part of it. And you've got the tray. So that's fairly self-explanatory, and the tray just sits on top like that. So you'll often put things in the bottom that take a little bit longer to cook, like your broccoli, your vegetables. You'll then use the tray for things that take a little bit less time. So like your you know, chicken or your salmon or, you know, fish, a little steam on there, and then the lid goes on the top. So a little tip when you're using the varoma, there's obviously all these little steam holes all over it. So you just want to make sure that you're not completely covering those, so that you're allowing the steam to circulate and get around. So there's obviously loads of those on the tray, but in the dish bit, you have to just be mindful. So say you're putting, you know, a whole big bit of cauliflower rice or something in here, just want to make sure that you kind of create a few pockets to allow that steam to come through. Or there are some dishes like the sticky toffee puddings where you'll steam like an entire cake in a big cake tin. And if you're doing that, a little tip for you is maybe use something like some chopsticks to place underneath the cake tin, so that you just don't completely cover those and you do allow that steam to circulate. When you're using this, that literally just sits on top of the lid, and then that will steam. But when top tip, so when you are steaming and you've got your lid on, open the lid away from your face, because obviously that's got all that steam built up inside it, so you don't want to be giving yourself an unexpected facial. Open the lid away from you just to release the steam safely. So those are the attachments there. You'll also have the Simple Ideas cookbook. Now, all of these recipes, it's a really lovely book actually that you can kind of flick through and just give you an idea of some of the sort of things that you can cook, and also the variety of things that you can do in your Thermomix. So there's a couple of pages that are worth bookmarking. Now, in your book, there are 2 tabs tab dividers that you can use, and I like to put those on page 27, which is where you will find an overview of the temperatures on your Thermomix and what they'd be used for, and the different speeds of the blades. So again, it'll take you from stirring, the first setting, and all the way through to kind of turbo and speed 10. So if you're wanting to manually cook outside of Cookie Do, then this is quite a handy page to refer to. And then a little bit further back in the book, you will find on page 235, you've got the chopping function. So this is where it kind of lists, if you're wanting to chop things yourself, so say you're wanting to, you know, grate down some chocolate, make your own rice flours. It also then goes into steaming. So if you're wanting to, you know, steam some vegetables alongside a dish that you're already doing, it will give you the weight and how long you should steam that for, and then which part of, if you're using the simmering basket or the Varoma. So have a look through there, because if you're wanting to kind of manually use your Thermomix outside of Cookie Do, then that's a very, very useful reference to look at as well. So just with regards to cleaning your Thermomix, so it's best not to use any kind of really harsh chemicals on it, so like your you know, kitchen sprays and things, because if you do, you could end up removing these kind of silver Thermomix and Bulwark logos. So ideally you just want to use a cloth and with some water and wipe that down. Obviously, you know, you can spray it if you want to, but just be mindful that you might remove those logos with kind of repeated use of that. Couple of rules and things that are worth bearing in mind to make sure that you kind of take the best care of your Thermomix. So in the base of your Thermomix, down here you can see in the 3 feet at the bottom, that's where the scales are. So you don't want to drag your Thermomix across the work surface. If you need to move it, you lift it and move it so that you don't, over time, upset the scales that are built in. That's why I use a sliding board. Obviously, this doesn't come with it, but you can purchase them on the website, and it just allows you to easily move your Thermomix like this without having to lift and move it. But that's just personal preference. So just to be aware of not dragging it across the worktop. Also, so when you are like kind of say you've got something on a spoon that you're popping into your Thermomix, you also, for the same reason of looking after the scales, you don't want to get into the habit of bashing onto the side of the bowl, cracking eggs onto the side of the bowl, because again, over repeated use of that, you know, you're going to be constantly bashing those scales. And just to make sure you get the maximum length out of your Thermomix, they're very solidly made, but just, you know, you don't really want to kind of repeatedly be banging them. Not best practice. Then when you're weighing, you want to make sure that nothing is leaning against your Thermomix, because the scales are built into them. So if you've got your cable round the side and that's leaning against your Thermomix, that's going to weigh that and impact what you're weighing. So just be mindful and make sure that there's nothing leaning up against it that could impact the scales as you're weighing. And another tip for you, so when you're using your Thermomix, if it's cooking, or you know, you put the whisk in and you're hearing that tinking sound, and you're wanting to stop it and check that you've put some seasoning in, or you want, you know, just want to basically stop what it's doing. If you push the round button at any point, it will pause what it's doing and it will open the lid. It won't wipe the settings that it's on, it literally pauses it, so you can then check what you need to check, and then you'll turn the dial and it will start again. So that's really handy for pausing and stopping if you ever need to during a recipe. With regards to cookie dough, so when you sign up to cookie dough for the first time, you get 1 month free included, and then when you buy your machine, you get 6 months included with the machine. And then currently it's £40 a year. Beyond that, should you want to continue with that subscription. And that gives you access to the thousands and thousands of recipes on the platform, which are constantly being updated, and the guided cooking feature with the recipes built in and sent through from Cookie Dough. Warranty-wise, you get a 2-year warranty included as standard when you purchase your Thermomix, and that's 1 year if you're using that for commercial use, just to bear that in mind. Another little tip for you, so say you've been cooking a curry and you've stained your lid with turmeric or something like that, and this has maybe taken on a slightly yellow tone. If you just pop this outside on a sunny day, that will literally, in a couple of hours, completely look brand new again. So that's always worth knowing. Don't think you've completely ruined it if you've cooked a curry and that's taken on some staining. Excuse me, that will right itself with a bit of sun. And another thing worth noting, so say you've been cooking some dough and you've got some dough or something wrapped around the blades, what you can do is tip the bowl upside down, and with this dial here, if you spin that, that spins the blades. So you can just turn that upside down, twist that, and that will help to unwind the dough from the blades and just help that to nicely fall out for you to then shape and do whatever it is you're wanting to do with that. I think that gives you a very quick overview of what's in the box, what to expect, and some top tips. Hope that was helpful.